That's Roman.
Hey, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Morning,
Hey,
Roman. And Gaetan is in Canada, and he decided that he would honor us with his presence in Canada, and hopefully we're going to be able to keep you on the entire show. But you said you didn't think so, huh, Gaetan?
well, I'm a little bit on the squeeze here. I was something was supposed to be done at 12:30 local time, and it's postponed to like 1:15 or 1:20. So when they say go, I have to do it, and
Okay.
so I'm like I'm with you guys and the
Okay.
audience
Well,
and Roman and Kathy is running the ship today like a
yep.
master.
Yes, as a matter of fact, now today we're going to talk about this is Roman's subject. What is humane dog care? And we're going to let you run the show on this, Roman. So let's start
That's so
about
inhumane.
what is humane dog care? What does that mean? What's the purpose of that?
Well, that's a great question. Thank you for having that opportunity. It is. It's a very open subject, and really, we haven't put a frame on it. Really, Sweden did, and Norway did. They actually put a frame on what exactly is humane animal care or house animal care, and it's important to understand that in US we have kind of like this open law. Everybody can does whatever he wants to do with this dog. It's his dog, it's his property. So there is no really interaction unless somebody puts you into a corner and points out all these bad things you do in your dog. So there is abuse and non-abuse. So as long as it's not abuse, it's fine. And that's sound a little bit concerning. And I think the reason why we're having a show today is because we need to kind of define that frame of humane animal care. I see the classic example of humane animal care in US is, puppy training, use a crate. You take a dog, put it in a crate, he's not going to pee in a crate and you take him out every day. Well, here's the weird thing. It's not humane. And people are like, what? What are you talking about? Everybody has a crate. Books are written about crates. Yes, but it's not humane. And then we have training, for example. What are tools allowed and what are not allowed? So there the veterinary, the American Veterinary Association, Veterinary Behaviors Association, basically create that frame. What is a healthy training approach? And they got heat on it. I don't understand why they would be blamed for putting that frame in place, right? And then we have how do we house dogs in a shelter? How do we house dogs in a boarding facility? How do we house dogs in a house? And so everything is open end. So nobody can talk about anything because there's no legal frame around that. Now, Sweden has a very interesting approach, and I think in 2008 they come up with the conclusion that we have to put in place what is allowed and what is not allowed. What is a crate? What is a kennel? What is food? What is exercise? And kind of define it so we can refer to it. So if we say, hey, you're not walking your dog, or you're not exercising your dog, or you're not feeding your dog properly, or you're not containing your dog properly, then you're not being humane to your dog, and that could have legal consequences. So if you don't have those frames, then you cannot apply legal consequences because there is no definition for it.
So are there references for this?
Yeah, references in what means?
In terms of documentation, things like that.
Yeah, well,
Somebody has put
there is enough
together.
scientific evidence of what is healthy frame of a crate, what is a kennel, what is aversive and non-aversive in training, and we see what is healthy in dog food and what's unhealthy in dog food. But we don't have a documentation where you can refer to it. You have to be kind of like the
Right,
same
that's what I
scientist
meant.
who read through the scientific papers, try to clear out those blogs, which one is right and which one is wrong. And then they have references, but if you don't read the references, you don't know if that reference is actually accurate or not. Just because I'm referencing something doesn't mean I understand the reference.
Wait a minute. Gaetan's drunk.
What happened?
Yeah.
Gaetan
Well,
is drunk. What? What are you doing? We can't hear you now.
Okay. So,
Okay.
I'm reading here, for example, animal welfare regulation of Sweden, done in 2008. And just a simple reminder, we have 2021, right? Exactly. That's exactly the English version of it, because I tried really to read the Swedish version. I had no success. But luckily in 2011, there was an English version out there, which is what I'm referring to. So since 2008, there is a regulation that says this is what it is. Okay, you or someone else must attend to your dogs at least twice a day.
Really?
Somebody has to attend your dog at least twice a day. So a day is over 24 hours. So it gives you already a frame. How long can your dog be alone? Dogs are social animals, right? We know that. And that because dogs are social animals, you cannot confine them in a place without social interactions. And so we have that definition. Then the dog must have their needs for social contact satisfied. Okay? Again, referring to a science that says dogs are social animals, we need to clarify the dogs must have needs for social contact satisfied. Now, who create those needs? The dog. The dog tells you how much he wants to be social. He wants to go play. He wants to be social with people. He wants to meet new places and new friends. Okay, we cannot just confine him and isolate him because we don't have time for it, right? And then the dog that kept indoors must regularly be walked outdoors, be given to a dog's age and health. So, which means if your dog is an indoor dog, doesn't mean he has to be indoor forever. He has to have access to outdoors, and he has to go accordingly to his age and health conditions, how often he should go outside. I know
Okay.
people, their dogs never left the house. They only went to the balcony. The balcony is still indoors. It's not really outdoors, right? Dogs that are permanently kept in exercise yards must be walked daily at another location. So we have another definition here. While dogs are outdoors, are to be walked, so they kind of put the frame on it. You have to interact with your personal dog. You cannot just put him outside, having being alone. You and your dog have to do something together. Dogs may not.
Does that mean like taking them for a walk together, or
Right.
just
You
being
and
together?
your dog should go outside of that kennel, go somewhere else for a walk.
Okay, so not just your backyard.
Right, which also defines exactly the frame of a shelter. So the dog is not being left out in the kennel run. He should have a personal interaction with a person going away from that location. Make sense?
Yes.
Dogs may not be kept in cages. Cages, in our terms, crates, okay, except on special occasions, at exhibitions, competitions, examinations, training for competitions in conjunction with hiding and transport. So they define very clearly what a crate is. A crate is a temporary situation for training, for exhibition training and competition, for examinations, like if you're going to the vet, or obviously that part comes out to the groomer, and for hunting. Meaning is I'm transporting the dog from a housing in a safe container to the hunting spot and then driving back again. It doesn't mean my dog has to be there for 4 hours in the house, in the crate, like 4 times a day.
Okay.
Right? The tables that specify the regulated dimension of the yards and boxes determine the dog's wither heights. So further down, we can look at the tables that explain exactly what is an exercise yard, what is the size of an exercise yard, and what is the size of a box / crate / container. Okay, so for
Is that down
example,
at the bottom here?
right,
Okay.
right, and page 11. So a dog with 25 centimeters of height should have, for one dog, should have an area in about 2 square meters, so 6 square feet of size. That's the box size, the kennel size.
Okay.
We recognize that it has nothing to do with our crates. Okay, so those boxes basically were invented in 68, if I remember right, in a contract with the government to transport dogs in planes.
Oh,
So
is that right?
crates were invented in 68. That's it. Before that, for the last 50,000 years, we didn't have a crate. Make sense?
Yes. Yeah.
So, and then we see also this confusion where people says, well, that's what we do. And also there's an explanation to that, very handy. People says dogs are den animals. Dogs are not den animals. That's not correct. They are born in dens for their safety, and that's it. As soon as they're weaned off the mother and they can be safe walking around, they're out of that safe space. So dogs are not den animals, and so we are not crypt animals either. We are safe in a crypt until mom and we can start walking around, and then we're out of the crypt, right?
Okay.
So, and it also defines different things, not just the kennels. It defines also, windows and lighting and environment. It defines the environment of keeping ammonia 10 particles per million. Okay, carbon dioxide 3,000 particles per million, which means the air have to be circulated. You cannot have your dog in a garage. You cannot have running a shelter or a kennel or facility in your garage or in a trailer or in a container. I need to have airflow going on, and I need to measure the air quality. So many facilities, for example, they force you to vaccinate your dog because they're not investing in aeration, which reduces the possibility of the dog getting sick.
I'm sorry, I have to go. Good luck with
Okay.
the show. Good luck, but see you next week, okay?
Okay. Bye, Gaetan.
Bye.
Have a safe trip home.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
So what else does it define? It defines the caring for dogs. It defines how you should care for puppies. You should define that the dog has to have water given to your dog, quality food, right? And the dog must be given water to drink.
Right.
I know people who don't give the dogs water to drink because they don't want their dogs to pee in a crate or in a kennel. And so they
And a
take
lot
away
of
the
people
water.
do that overnight for their dogs too. Like it's almost like you think they're going for testing. After midnight, no water.
Right. It also defines the walking. Daily exercise and regular walking is essential for your dogs. Now, of course, there is a frame. A dog who is sick and has to stay in the house, we're not pushing the agenda. You have to walk your dog and dragging him down the aisle because you have to walk your dog, right? But if you don't have a legal frame around it, you will not be able to tell the person who doesn't walk the dog, he should walk your dog. And if you see his nails, his growing all over the place, then you recognize the dog never been walked and never been taken care of, and so you can step into it. Then there's also the definition of tethering. How long can a dog be tethered? Okay, and for what is the length of the tether? Then about muzzling. What is the muzzling process? It says specifically, tight-fitting muzzle that prevent the dogs from having panting may only be used temporarily. When a dog engages in heavy panting, this means that the pants are up to 200 to 400 times per minute. The dog does this to cool down the body since it cannot sweat. So it says you can use the muzzle, but if you use a tight muzzle, you need to be below certain breathing per minute so the dog can breathe, right? So I see dogs don't want to bark. They put them as tight muzzle on and put them in a kennel, and so that will be the muzzle bite control.
Okay, let me ask you a question here.
Mm-hmm.
on this. What is the purpose of a muzzle other than so they don't bite?
Well, the purpose of the muzzle is two-sided. The one side is to protect the person of the dog, and the other side is to protect the dog from the person. And I know it
Okay.
sounds weird, but if a dog bites a person, usually there is a fatal consequence to it. So if a person cannot contain his hands and has to pet the dog, and the paw responds with, theoretically biting the person, then the muzzle will prevent him that to happen, which means it saves the person for damaging the dog at the end. But also some dogs who are picker eaters, they pick just things up from the floor because they have medical conditions. The muzzle will help them not to be able to do that.
Okay.
But also a muzzle prevents for dogs who are in transition and in behavior modification program, then there are play dates that their automatic response, biting, is not being possible because the muzzle will contain it. So if the dog
Okay.
tends to snap at somebody, he will not be able to do any harm, so it doesn't get him in trouble a lot while the dog is being in training.
Okay.
However, it's also be done for safety reasons. For example, police and military dogs are being handled and they have to perform in a certain way. I'm not a fan of that, but it's another story.
Okay.
And we want to keep the public safe of a dog of having an accident bite, right?
Okay. So what we're really saying is that muzzles are to prevent fighting or biting,
Right.
because they could fight with other dogs or they can bite. So if you see a police dog and the police dog has the muzzle on, the handler will take the muzzle off because the intent is to bite. Is that
Well,
correct?
the intent is not to bite. The intent is to contain. So we need to
Okay.
be a little bit careful how we define it. So the dog doesn't want to bite. What he wants is to hold, and he does it
Okay.
for biting, right? So, for example, if we go to Frankfurt or Germany, for example, to the airport, you will see all the dogs that are from police wear a muzzle through the public, right? And
Right.
if the police officer says necessary, you're going to take the muzzle off and the dog is ready for duty. What the dog has to do with it, that's the situation. It doesn't mean the dog is trained to grab and release on command or on cue.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. And the same for
It's
military
not the
as
same
well.
reason why I'm bringing my dog to the vet and putting a muzzle on, because the
Yeah.
dog in pain will likely bite somebody to avoid the pain.
Right. Right. Yeah. Or associate their pain
Right.
with the vet. Yeah.
Right. And then we have a clear definition what a shock collar and prong collar. Right.
Oh
It says
gosh.
shock collars and prong collars may not be used on dogs. A shock collar is a collar that gives the dog electroshocks. A prong collar is a collar with harbs that reinforce the effect of the collar. So, very clear. Electric fencing. Invisible fences must not be used for dogs. Invisible electric fences refer to a buried cable that forms a boundary. When the dog crosses the boundary, it receives an electric shock through, for example, a special collar and the receiver. Visible fencing may be used for dogs in a fenced off area. Visible electric fencing may be used for dogs if the fenced off area is sufficiently large. Visible electric fencing refers to fencing that delivers an electric shock when the animal comes in direct contact with the fence. So there's a little bit of a difference what a shock collar does and what electric fence does. From my observation, a dog chooses to touch the fence on his own choice, and that will be the consequence of his choice. A shock collar, the dog does not have control. Whatever his choice is, even right, even wrong, is being corrected because of somebody else's choice. In that,
Right.
and that will be the device making that choice, or sometimes the person making that choice. So then we say clearly.
Now let me get this straight. What you're saying is that an invisible fence, an invisible electric fence is not good, but a visible electric fence is okay. Is the invisible electric fence a problem
Okay,
because the
let
dog
me
doesn't
define.
see it?
It's not okay on my side. It is okay from the humane perspective. This is the dog sees a fence, like I see a wall. What happens if I try to get through the wall? I'm gonna get hurt. Okay,
Right.
it's my choice to make that choice to go through the wall. Well, in the beginning, I thought I can just walk through the wall because I'm invisible, right? And then I had the consequence that, oops, it didn't work out, so it hurt.
Yeah.
But it was my choice. Now, if a dog sees a fence and chooses to go against the fence because it's visible, and the
Right.
fence will shock him. Obviously, the electrical shock is not being compared to the electrical shock he would get if he goes through electrical fence, invisible fence. But that consequence is down to the dog. He can try it again or not try it again.
Yeah.
But it's visible. He knows where it is.
Yeah.
Now, the invisible fence comes from a different angle. It says, well, I'm going to show the dog where a visible fence is by putting flags on, and then I remove the flags, and the dog has to remember it.
Yeah. Okay.
Right?
I can see that. Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
Now,
I would think that a dog would get very skitsy because they wouldn't know where that invisible fence was. It's like, if I step here, is that going to be a problem? If I step here, is that going to give me the shock? So I never have been a big lover of invisible fencing.
well, the invisible fence, A, is not a containment device, and the manufacturers are very clear. B, the invisible fence, the dog in panic or in this high arousal, he would just ignore it. I know dogs who just found out how to get through it by running just faster through the fence, and then have hard time coming back because the motivation is missing for them to run back into the house.
Right. Right. Yeah.
But it doesn't protect them. So the reason why the electrical fence is, or the electric visible fence is defined, is because there are many properties out there who have dogs and sheep in a contained area framed by electrical fence. So it's unavoidable because you need to keep the animals contained in your property or in your field. And so dogs are exposed to that fence. So you cannot just eliminate the one thing if the other dog is exposed by it anyway. So
Right.
dogs who try to contain those sheep and try to keep them away from the fence, it's their job. But we need to define what it is and if it's appropriate or not. So invisible fence, no. Visible fence, yes.
Okay.
Makes sense? Now, you
Yeah.
have horses, you have cows, you have sheep, you have goats, you have ducks, you have all these animals around there that are being able to be contained for farming. That's another big story, but it makes that gray zone clear out. What is and what is not. Okay? Then it says also the areas of the rooms the dog can be contained, what the size of the dog is. It says about the windows and the lighting the dog should have. It says about specific areas in large facilities, for example, the dog should be specific areas provided for feeding and feed management, bathing and tending to the animals, isolating and caring for sick animals. So it is clear. You can't just put everybody in the same spot, which
Yeah.
means hoarding, no. It
Yeah.
just frames it right there. Okay, so
Yeah.
fire safety. I know we had the conversation in the past where 75 dogs just died because there were no fire safety features in place. It also defines exercise yard, and it defines what is the exercise yard and what if you have multiple dogs in the yard. You cannot just have one dog and then the same yard and then just add one more dog, still keeping the same size of yard, because dogs should be able to avoid themselves, to be able to have their own personal space around that yard. So it defines it. For example,
What's your view on dog parks?
well, yeah, that's a whole show right there. Now, what I see in dog park is a great opportunity for people to socialize the dogs, but see capital bold but, right? People who bring the dogs in these play yards are not really educating the dogs. They just let dogs be dogs kind of attitude. And
Yeah.
it's
Is
not
there dog
something-
park etiquette or something that
Yeah,
should
well,
be
there are
established?
etiquettes very clearly, very many often those. I'm sorry, I have a little issue here with my electric fencing.
Your
There
electric
you go.
fencing?
Yeah, my charger isn't working, I guess.
Okay.
So, and we see that those play yards are very clear defined. You should not have a dog in heat there. Okay, you should not have a dog who's not socialized there. You should not have an aggressive dog there. You shouldn't have a dog who's not spayed and nurtured. And people just don't give a bark. They just take the dog, throw him out there, and then things will figure it out. And then you have these groups of people who kind of take over and bully other dogs and owners. It says, hey, it's our time. If you don't like it, you can walk away from it. Not understanding it's actually a public place.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then we have, those bullies that take over this park by unsocialized dogs, and all they do basically, they want the dog to be trained by other dogs who have no clue about socialization. So it's kind of like a group of really unsocialized dogs try to figure things out. It's a wild
Yeah.
place. Now, is it a nice place for dogs? Yes, if things are done correctly. Okay, if people are aware that the dog has to be supervised and you cannot just be on your phone or reading a book while your dog does his own thing. Okay, dogs are not taking care of themselves. Dogs are like 5-year-olds playing with matches all over the place, so we have to be very careful. Then it's a very interesting place to get infections. Okay, dogs have illnesses, and just nobody will care. They just go there and then spread giardia all over the place.
Right.
And you come home and your dog is sick a week later, and you don't know what happened. And you have also contamination from these toys and balls everybody's chewing on and fall around. And then your dog goes and picks it up, and you don't know what happened, right?
Right.
Oh, and we have a dog here playing with different things. Here again.
So what I'm thinking is that when you've got a dog in a dog park, is it humane dog care to let the dog run free? And you just answered that no. But most importantly, whenever I've taken my Charlie to a dog park, I feel that it's my obligation to make certain that the introduction with another dog is done in an appropriate way, not just let him loose and let him go wherever, because some of the dog parks allow the large dogs and the small dogs to be together, and I don't know whether that's good or not. But still, in all, there's a factor that happens in me, where an emotion where I become anxious, and I'm always afraid that my energy is going to go through to Charlie to let him know that I'm anxious, and he might go and attack another dog because of me, because of my anxiety. So
Mm-hmm.
dog parks for me always represent fear that something could happen to my dog. And I would love to be able to overcome that. And the only way to do that is I go into the dog park first. I assess who all the dogs are. I leave Charlie in the car.
Yeah.
And I determine whether or not it's okay for him to come in there. Now, is that being an overly cautious mom?
Well,
Pet mom?
yeah. Well, everything I say can use against me. In that case, I would say, no, you're a gay.
Yeah.
I would say, yeah, I always encourage people to go in and check the field before they bring the dogs in. I always do the assessment when I'm there. Who's there? Who does what? Who is affordable? And then I see, for example, what's up, buddy? And I see, for example, there's one person and 5 dogs. I'm not going in there.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know
Because in
what's going
case
to
there's a
happen.
dog
If
fight,
something
who's going to
happens,
break it up?
we
Yeah.
don't have enough people to take care of the dogs. So I wouldn't
Yeah.
say I can tolerate 2 dogs per person, or maybe 3 dogs per professional if that's a trainer or a pet caregiver. But I wouldn't care more for 3 dogs in a park if I'm going there professionally. I know from
Okay.
pet sitters who just take the dogs in the park, like 5 dogs, and let them loose, and then he doesn't even see if one dog is missing because so many dogs are in there.
Yeah.
But I always keep a backup plan, and you have to train your dog in the park before he goes there, what to do, how to get introduced into this decompression area. So every park should have a decompression area where the dog isn't confined, is off the leash, can freely roam in that space. It shouldn't be too tight, it shouldn't be too big. And then dogs can meet through the fence, and if things are being done and look correctly and nicely, then we'll let the dogs go in and interact with each other. But the dog should always know where the exit is. So it's very important to, especially in the beginning, to train the dog that if you need help, that's the door you go, and I help
Yeah.
you out, get out of there.
Right. Well, what I have found at the dog parks is that it seems to be a place for unfortunately for women to socialize. They
Yeah,
have picnic tables, and we all sit around the picnic tables, and we
yeah.
forget that our dogs are playing and they're out there. But I don't do that. I mean, I'll
No,
talk, but
I
I'm like,
disencourage people to go into the dog park with food. Like, no.
yeah,
Big no, like red flag. Why? Because some dogs are fine except around food. So you basically are there to create a drama. So you want to make a picnic, Take your dog, go out in the nature, sit down, have picnic with your dog. You want to have picnic with people, invite them for a coffee, hang out, and do. But if you're in a
Yeah,
dog park, it's the dog's time, and you should just there paying
exactly.
attention, let the dog educate. Intervention is the important part, not socialization for people. So
Yeah,
if I'm missing the point of intervention, my dog will get hurt or eventually killed. Happens all the
right,
time, right?
right.
And so when do I know that? If I'm busy chatting about my phone, about my relationship, about my divorce and whatever's coming up to chat
Yeah,
about things.
right.
And I'm not sexist here, so
Yeah,
everybody can talk about anything. There's no frame around it.
yeah,
But I need to observe my dog, no matter what and who. And I know people who's like, oh, my dog loves everyone. And I don't see a loving dog. I see a bully bullying everyone coming
yeah,
in and
right,
checks them out. Like, that's inappropriate. And if you
right.
make a remark as a professional, man, you have like 5 people attacking you in return, because how dare you coming into our clique, in our group, and saying things, right? Because we have no clue what we're doing and you're not exposing us at all, kind of thing.
Right.
Anyway, then we also be attentive to exposure to the dogs to the elements. Like, they're very clear in Sweden, it's cold, kind of thing. And it's very clear that the dog shouldn't be outside unattended over 25 degrees
And
centigrade, and
chained, and chained.
that too, and below 5 degrees centigrade. I'm metric, so excuse moi. So, and then it says if a dog has to be in a minimum space on transporting container, it says exactly in the car what is the dimension I can carry the dog in the car. I just cannot squeeze him in a box, or like some politicians do, just hang out the dog in the back of the car in the
Yeah,
kennel next to the exhaust. Okay, so it says, for example, the length of the dogs measured to the point of the nose to the insertion of the tail, multiplied by 1.10. So the kennel should be 10% larger than the dog's length, and the dog should be 2.5% larger. 2.5 times larger on width as the dog is wide, and it gives the dog the height that the dog, whatever he does, he should not touch the top.
and he should be able to turn around.
Exactly. Now, dogs are very active animals. They need to move, right? If they don't move, they get stagnant. If they get stagnant, they get nervous. If they get nervous, they get stressed. If they get stressed, they start having behavior issues. And behavior issues can cause to aggression. So if a dog is too many hours in the kennel, that's a problem. If a dog is too long in the kennel to transport, I'm talking about those people who do rescue transport, we need to be aware that no matter why you do things, why you transport, you cannot just excuse your behavior and excuse your methods because you're doing a greater good.
Very good point.
Okay? So I see
Excellent
people
point.
who transport dogs and says, I'm rescuing 150 dogs. And my question is, hey, you have your 150 dogs in that container with no sufficient air conditioning, because you rented a truck without air conditioning doesn't make it okay.
Yeah, right, right.
Okay.
Or
Well,
a
you want them
cage
to
on top
die in
of
the
a cage.
shelter?
Yeah,
It's not excusing your action. At some point, maybe they're better off in a shelter, dead, than suffering forever in your kennel.
yeah, yeah. Good
We have
point.
to think
Yeah,
of that too, right?
yeah.
And then we see many often. I have an RV, and I had 4 dogs in my RV, and I had to contain those dogs through transport.
Mm-hmm.
But what I did, I ripped out furniture. I didn't have them sitting on the furniture. I ripped out furniture, I took them out to create more space for the dogs, so I can divide a 3-person seated area in a 2 rooms, kennels, for the dog to transport. And then I had a yard outside that was bigger than my RV. So I had the RV in the house, and then I had a yard outside framed with 18 panels by 4 feet each, and that was my dog park for 1 dog. And plus I had dog walks. So there is no excuse I live in an RV, no excuse I don't have a room in my house. There's no excuse I live in an apartment. Well, you need to take considerations of that.
Right.
Just because you live in an apartment doesn't make you eligible, or you don't have the right to take a dog in if you cannot care for your dog.
Right. Right.
And honestly, I'm not being kind of a jerk about it, but I lived in my car for a couple of months because I couldn't find a house for my dogs. I didn't get rid of my dogs. Did I have a choice? I did. Totally
Yeah, right.
justified. But I choose to stay in my car,
Right.
plugged in the winter in an outlet, in a parking lot, and warm my dogs and myself out until I found a home. It took long, but I found a home.
Yeah.
Not convenient, but it happened. So
So let me
anyway,
ask you, what is healthy dog training?
what
You
the
had
healthy,
mentioned that earlier.
I think a healthy dog training, it's not such a thing as healthy dog training. It's a humane or inhumane approach in dog training. Now, let me give an example. The philosophy behind what we're doing is more important. And I say that I see people saying my dog has to comply to my commands. That comes from a weird angle. What is a command? A command is you have to follow instructions, or what exactly is going to happen if you don't. And then the other version is a cue. A cue is a word to remember the behavior that is more rewarding than the one it doesn't. So we see just from the terminology and from the way we approach certain training, we see the difference between I want you to sit down and be quiet, or versus, hey, make yourself comfortable. I'll be there in a bit. Okay.
Yeah.
How we get there is the question. How do I teach my dog that quiet is what I need him to do? How do I teach my dog that sit is something that's appreciated? Versus I force you to sit and then I reward for it because I want you to sit no matter how you feel. Now, if a dog has certain emotions, we have to understand a dog has emotions, and we can control those emotions by affecting the dog's thoughts. So if I help the dog think differently, I can affect his behaviors and his emotions, and all of a sudden becomes this triangle: thoughts, emotion, behavior.
Right.
So
Yeah.
if I try to correct the behavior without addressing the emotions and without addressing the thoughts, the circle, that triangle will collapse. It's not stable. So it becomes unhealthy. So if I help the dog have a positive thought to offer a positive behavior, so I can positively reward that, so the behavior is performed properly, that is a very stable triangle. And at some point, the dog will start performing that triangle on himself. It tries to think positively, to perform positively, to have a positive outcome. So there is no need of punishment and force, because the dog just has the right attitude about it. So when we talk about socialization, we talk about teaching the dog the things that he can think that keeps him safe and out of trouble, that is rewarding for the dog. And it helps him thrive. That's it.
Okay. The great answer. Great answer.
Now,
Okay.
it defines breeding, it defines surgical procedures, it defines how marking and identifications for dogs. It defines permits. It defines rules that are not allowed to follow, and it refers to legislations of animal welfare, Swedish Board of Agriculture regulations, Swedish Board of Agriculture regulations. They're all referring to already a Board of Agriculture regulations that are based on science, not based on personal gain and money. That's unfortunately here in the US.
Right. Yeah.
And I think that is something we should adopt as a country. I think we should put that frame there and start reinforcing it, because saying dogs are family and not treating them like family, but treating them like animals,
Right.
considering that animals are beings that going into slaughter in that case, because that's our idea of a house animal. Well, a cow, a cattle, a bacon strip, right?
Yeah.
And we don't see that if we take in a dog that is such a sentient being and is so similar to our human environment and to our family systems, and we treat them as an emotional, intelligent being, then we have to take in consideration, put them in a frame.
Yeah.
Okay, how do you treat a family member? Would you leave your child in a closet?
Depends on the family member.
Right? And I see many people get frustrated because we say, oh, you cannot compare dogs to animals. Animals, those animals, they're not well, hold on a second. I
Yeah,
didn't
yeah.
say
No, you
dogs
can. Yeah,
are people, but people and dogs are mammals, and we are so similar,
yeah.
almost similar even to the food that we're feeding. Okay, they have different way of walking and different way of thinking the way we think or not, and they have a different, let's say, biological needs, but they're still mammal. And I
Yep.
think dogs are more similar to people than people are to apes.
Hmm.
At the same time, we cannot compare wolves to dogs or the other way around, because if we had that conclusion, then we have to compare ourselves with apes, which means we have to hang on trees and eat bananas, kind of thing,
Hey, count me in.
right? I know you like yellow fruits. No, but I think it's important that we dare to speak up for those rules and
Yeah,
reinforce them. And I so
yeah.
appreciate to actually give that opportunity for sharing. Um, and my apologies, my English is not as well, and I may say things that don't make any sense. But
No, no, you
my
did.
good intention is to educate. So yeah, maybe we can share those animal regulations PDF file to our
Okay, yeah,
listeners,
I will do
and
that.
just
Yeah.
and I'm not saying if you don't, you're a miserable bad person who's trying to kill your dog, and you're not respecting your dog. But try to comply to most of them as much as possible. I cannot imagine going to church or going to a meeting or going somewhere where in the back of my mind I have this idea that my dog is contained to not do things that he would likely do because he feels like doing,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So
And I give you an example here, and I saw many people say, wait a minute, you're talking about containment and crates and you have a kennel back there? Yes, I do. If you want to
mhm,
see the size, it's 5 by 10. It's half of that room. That's the dog's kennel, right?
right, that's
But
his house.
right, he's in transition, coming out um, from a kennel, from a shelter that he stays there for a year, transitioning to staying safe in the house. So on Monday, this kennel run is gone, right? So he has a complete room for himself, which is 120 square feet.
Uh-huh.
That's his room, fully air conditioned, with fire alarm, with 2 heaters just in case one fails, and
And
an
food and
electric
water.
monitoring just in case I have a power outage and I don't see it. And he has access to the door that I can regulate how often he can go outside. So he can access to outside, he can access to a bigger room, he has access to food, he has access to water. Okay, he has access to walk. He gets 3 times walk, to the point of my wife complains already. Are you coming home or what? Right? And so yeah, he gets
Yeah.
3 times for a walk. Does it have to be a mile? No, it has to be a social interactions, active participating in a common task, and he's learning through that. And
Hmm.
he's getting for rides. So it's kind of like taking a child out for things. You cannot just close him down.
Yeah. The last thing that I had put up was about dog abuse. So from a humane standpoint, we know what dog abuse is, but is it dog abuse if people don't follow the things that you had just talked about during the show?
I'm not a judge.
We'll go
I,
ahead and be one for right
I,
now.
I just want people to be aware that dogs have needs.
Hmm.
And there is a great book about do not harm, and maybe we share that link so people understand the dog's hierarchy of needs and people recognize what those are, that changing food is part of being compliant to those needs, changing the bedding is part of it, grooming your dog is part of it, socializing a dog for it, challenging your dog in different aspects so the dog is not being bored to death all day long. Giving a
Hmm.
dog a Kongto is not enrichment. So enrichment is part of that part. And then proper feeding. And I mean proper feeding is because if we say healthy food, that's not what the box says.
Yeah,
It's
right.
what
So
we
how do you
think the
know? Yeah.
box says, but it doesn't. It's very clear what it is. It says very clear what it is. If I give my dog meat meal, which may include roadkill or
Ooh.
shelter kill, Nobody talks about it, but that's the reality. It's meat, not defined what it is. Or I have animal fat, which is again not definition what it is exactly. I cannot expect that to be a healthy meal. As much I cannot expect that going to McDonald's is a healthy dinner.
Even though they call it healthy,
Yeah, they can call it whatever they want. Doesn't mean it is.
Yeah.
So, and again, you know, everybody has to have his moral and ethical compass adjusted, and I'm not the one who will do it. But I want to point things out so people are aware that, hey, wait a minute, there's a North Pole here. How about you check out that?
Yeah. Okay, Roman, wonderful show. Gaetan will be with us again next week, and I just want to let everyone know we're having the Baby Boomer Investing Show on Tuesday, and that will be at we're going to have Tom Stevens from Tombot. He's going to be showing Jenny, who is one of the first FDA registered robotic emotional support animal dog. And he's going to be talking about her. It's a very, very fascinating thing. We've had Tom on the show before, but he's coming on the Baby Boomer Investing Show because it's a dog that is used for people that have dementia and Alzheimer's if they can't have a dog of their own. So this becomes an emotional support dog. It's
so
fabulous.
Okay.
Yes, very, very. So that'll be on the show, and it'll be broadcast on the Dog Connection show as well. So look for it at 10 o'clock Pacific Standard Time on Tuesday.
Good.
Okay. All right. Thanks so much, everyone. We'll see you next week. Thanks, Roman.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.